think Americans are rallying around. They're a more pro-life America today than ever.
But what you said is not true, correct? That America is becoming more pro-life. That's just not the case. If you look at the latest polling,
well, I believe
it shows overwhelmingly Americans disagree with the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
Another pro-lifer making things up as they go to rile up extremists. Now, you and I both know if this was on Fox, 99% of the time these blatant lies would go unchecked.
Americans disagree with the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
Where Americans really disagree is the extreme position of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Governor Newsom of abortion on demand until the time of birth, and the government subsidizes and pays for it. I believe what we want to do is have a champion for the culture of the sanctity of human life.
But as Jim Acosta puts it, rather kindly I should say, it's BS.
I think Americans are rallying around. They're a more pro-life America today than ever. I think politically this is going to be on our right side as well.
But what you said is not true, correct? That America is becoming more pro-life. That's just not the case. If you look at the latest polling,
well, I believe
it shows overwhelmingly Americans disagree with the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
Where Americans really disagree is the extreme position of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Governor Newsom of abortion on demand until the time of birth, and the government subsidizes and pays for it. I believe what we want to do is have a champion for the culture of the sanctity of human life, and someone who can point out the differences in the extreme.
Bob, you and I've had lots of conversation over the year. Democrats are not in favor of abortion right up until birth. That's not true.
Someone's going to have to tell Governor Newsom that, and I believe even President Biden that as well. They are not willing to say when they would stop.
He has said that his position is Roe versus Wade. Yeah. But President Biden has said his position
it's Roe versus Wade, which is a. So I think what you're going to see, Iowa's a very pro-life state. We passed a heartbeat bill. Right now, they're going to call a special session on Tuesday. They're going to repass a heartbeat bill. South Carolina's passed a heartbeat bill. Florida's passed a heartbeat bill. You're going to see more and more of America do this because they know it's the right thing to do.
All right.
Well, let's take a look at one of the main falsities here, right? That the majority of Americans are becoming pro-life. Well, it's actually not true. Not even close. In fact, he's got it mixed up. Actually, the percentage of Americans who consider themselves, quote, pro-choice has risen to around 55%, its highest level in decades, according to a Gallup poll. In fact, if we look at last year's midterm as a case study, you know, the red wave that was merely a ripple in a puddle, conservatives found out the hard way that abortion wasn't a 50-50 issue anymore, and it dictated votes.
Before the break, I tried to break down just how much of an effect the fight for abortion rights had on this midterm election, one where ballot measures to protect abortion access or reject restrictions have passed in 5 states. Maybe this is what Democrats should do. Maybe there should be an abortion question in a lot of states. Does leaning into abortion rights, is it likely to work more if it's worked as well so far?
Oh, I absolutely think it is. I mean, I think advocates for years, for decades, have been talking about how this conversation will motivate voters, especially when you're asking them directly. And then there was a lot of polling that came out from this election, including some that was released by NARAL just yesterday, that showed nearly 45% of voters said that abortion was a motivating factor for them in this election. Over 50% for Black voters, over 50% for voters, young voters, Gen Z voters. And so what we have seen is that when the question is asked directly to voters, they will make a decision. And now we are hoping that politicians will understand what voters are saying and actually follow the will of the people.
That America is becoming more pro-life. That's just not the case. If you look at the latest polling,
well, I believe it
shows overwhelmingly Americans disagree with the overturning of Roe versus Wade.
But here's the thing. I'm glad that Jim Acosta brought this up, because I've just been dying to discuss with a pro-life American about all the other things that the majority of Americans want that are in fact pro-life. They help preserve and protect life. So let's look at some of those areas that if this person really did care about life and what the majority of Americans want, he and his Republican colleagues would be all for. Like, say, paid maternity leave.
Let's guarantee all workers have a living wage. Let's make sure working parents can afford to raise a family with sick days, paid family medical leave, affordable child care. That's going to enable millions of more people to go and stay at work. And let's restore the full child tax credit, which gave tens of millions of parents some breathing room. and cut child poverty in half to the lowest level in history. And by the way, when we do all these things, we increase productivity, we increase economic growth. So let's finish the job and get more families access to affordable, quality housing.
About 8 in 10 Americans, 82% roughly, say mothers should have full paid maternity leave, while fewer, 69%, support paid paternity leave. So as a pro-life Republican, you should be focusing on these issues, right?
I think Americans are rallying around. They're a more pro-life America today than ever.
And since we're talking about majorities also, what about universal healthcare support? That's got to be a pro-life issue as well, right? Well, according to Pew Research in a post-pandemic poll, around 63% of US adults said the government had a responsibility to provide healthcare coverage for all.
I want to ask the audience a question. If you could raise your hand here. A show of hands of how many people get their insurance from work, private insurance right now. How many get it from private insurance? Okay, now of those, how many are willing to transition to what the senator says, a government-run system? There's 180 million people on private insurance.
All right, let's deal with that, Brett.
And
fair question.
They would be lost, right?
Well,
to your
Brett,
system.
Fair
Okay.
question.
Okay.
Good question.
Good, thank you.
I know it's what the right wing throws out, so let me answer it. All right? Millions of people every single year lose their health insurance. You know why? They get fired or they quit and they go to another employer. I was the mayor for 8 years. You know what I did, what probably every mayor in America does, is you look around for the best insurance program, the most cost-effective insurance. You change insurance. Every year, millions of workers wake up in the morning and their employer has changed the insurance that they have. Maybe they like the doctors. People are nodding their heads. Okay, so this is not new. Every year. Now, what we're talking about actually is stability. That when you have a Medicare for all, it is there now and will be there in the future.
So he must be all about these causes, right? Since he's so pro-life. Or what about Republicans are so pro-life, they don't want to see life ended short because of a gun, right? Well, a Fox News poll of all places found that earlier this year, 87% of voters surveyed said they support requiring criminal background checks for all gun buyers. 77% support requiring a 30-day waiting period for all gun purchases. Meanwhile, 61% of voters support banning assault rifles and semi-automatic weapons.
So Fox News polling shows that there is a lot of strength behind some of these proposals at this point. Some of these proposals, background checks for guns, which by and large, most of them are background checked before you do a purchase. 88%, though, moving the legal age for an assault rifle purchase is at 82%. Flagging for people who are a danger to themselves or others, those red flag laws, 81%. And banning assault weapons, 63%. Are you out of step with your constituents?
The text does matter here because it's that text that will determine whether we're intruding unduly on the rights of the American law-abiding citizen.
This is a poll that Fox News, yes, Fox News, took on common sense gun control. Proposals to reduce gun violence. Background checks, 88%. Increasing the legal age to 21 for assault rifles, 82%. Flag people danger to self, 81%. And banning assault weapons entirely, 63%. Let me just repeat. Fox News. Conservatives will try to tell you that this is such a polarizing issue and that the country is so divided over common sense gun laws when it is utter bullshit.
First of all, we have an epidemic of gun violence that killed more than 19,000 people last year alone. A majority of Americans want gun safety reforms, including universal background checks, mandatory gun licenses, and a ban on semi-automatic weapons. It's the politicians and their patrons in the gun lobby that are holding those up.
So I'm sure this Republican pro-lifer is aware of this issue, right? I'm sure he's just chomping at the bit to go on CNN to discuss these polls. Or is it merely that his pro-life tendencies seem to fall away after birth?
You're confused because you think I'm saying something that I'm not.
Well, tell me what you're saying.
What I'm telling you, I'm being very clear. You cannot say you are pro-life when you vote against prenatal care for the mother. You cannot say you are pro-life when you vote against Head Start. You cannot say you are pro-life when you do not want to expand Medicaid to keep hospitals open. You cannot say you are pro-life when you have OBGYNs who are not available in your state. You cannot say you are pro-life when you have black women who are dying at a higher rate during childbirth and you do nothing public policy-wise to fix it. You cannot say you are pro-life if you allow infant mortality rates to be sky high in areas where there are black and brown people. What that tells me is you are anti-abortion. You are not pro-life. Because if you are pro-life, you care about the child in the womb and when the child is out. And if you are pro-life, you are standing there with black folks when their kids are killed by cops. You are not silent. So if you are pro-life, be pro-life from the womb to the tomb, but not just in the womb.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.